What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. The battle to pass the debt ceiling bill in time is now in the Senate and still has some significant hurdles. In fact, I'll let you hear from a senator on a major amendment that is going to happen for possibly even more cuts. This comes here as the race is on right now, and there's already several senators that have said they will not vote for the bill. And there is multiple things in this bill that will uh, cut a lot of things for tens of millions of Americans, including new SNAP work requirements, new C-19 clawbacks for tens of billions of dollars, and the student loan payment pause will end. You can see here, quote, this bill does end the payment pause for almost 45 million people in the United States. We'll go over some of the details here in this video as, yeah, SNAP people, C-19 student loan payment pause, and also even more cuts on the table here as well. And I'll let you hear from it right now. Take a listen here to Senator Rand Paul of a major amendment from the Republican side that is going to be introduced here today.
Welcome back. The debt limit bill passing the House last night with 314 votes. Now it is headed to the Senate. It is expected to face some hurdles in the upper chamber with just 4 days until the June 5th default deadline. Here's House Speaker Kevin McCarthy last night after the vote.
The Senate passes amendments to this bill. Is the House prepared to take up amended bill from the Senate? Senate Republicans have said that they want to offer amendments.
They can offer amendments. I'm not quite sure they'll pass, but we'll take that up as it goes. Look, the House is here when they weren't supposed to be in session. I know many of them are going home. We'll do whatever needs to be done, but I doubt that it'll come back.
Joining me right now is Kentucky Senator and ranking member of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, Rand Paul. Senator, great to see you. Thanks very much for being here this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So give us your take. You plan to introduce an alternative plan to the Biden-McCarthy deal as an amendment. Tell us about your plans.
Well, you know, there's nothing conservative about the Biden-McCarthy plan. It allows unlimited borrowing for 2 years beyond the next presidential election. They can spend as much money as they can possibly spend, borrow as much money as they want. No limits on borrowing for 2 years. Nothing conservative about that. Experts have estimated that they might borrow as much as $4 trillion in 2 years. That's not conservative. Nothing they can say about it makes that amount of borrowing conservative. So what I have proposed is the penny plan budget spending caps. Basically, the penny plan balances the budget over 5 years. Why 5 years? Because historically, Republicans have supported a constitutional amendment to balance the budget over 5 years. And so to do that, it's actually up to 5 pennies. So it's 5% cut each year for 5 years, and you get to balance. But if we did get to balance, I think you'd have an economic productivity and recovery like you've never seen in our country. And really, many other countries do this. Half of Europe actually balances their annual budget. You know, if we can't even do what Europe does with their annual budget, I think we're in a bad situation. But my plan would institute these caps, and it would also borrow $500 billion. And then when they run out of that, they'd have to come back and negotiate for more. The big mistake of the Biden-McCarthy deal is there'll be no more negotiation. For the next 2 years, they'll just shovel the money out, and nobody will talk about fiscal responsibility for 2 years.
Well, you've been a champion of fiscal responsibility for a long time, and your voice has been heard. But, Senator, let me get your take on where to cut. Because if the majority of the budget is these entitlements that nobody can touch, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, where does the money come from in terms of the plan cuts?
Everywhere, and that's really the part of the problem with the way the House approached this and the way the McCarthy approached this. They took mandatory spending off the table. Well, mandatory spending is 2/3 of government spending. The remaining third is half military and half other welfare programs. So they also took military off the table. So they took 66% off the table with mandatory. Then they took another 16% off the table with military. So what they did is they tried to do fiscal responsibility by only looking at 16% of the budget. So as a consequence, they weren't able to do anything. In my plan, we look at smaller numbers, and that's why the penny plan used to work. It was a 1% cut across the entire board. Now it's a 5% cut, but it's across everything. And I think you could even do it to things that people want and make them more efficient. Look, the Medicare budget is $1 trillion. You think you can't skim off a few percentage without actually reducing health care? I think you could actually do it and enhance health care by making Medicare more efficient. But no one ever does it. They just say it's off the table. We're not going to talk about it because the Democrats will criticize us. But it's a big mistake, and that's why we're in this big deficit hole that we have.
Now, this bill, even without any changes or any amendments, already has multiple things in it. Take a look here. And this is just some of the major stuff here. New SNAP work requirements, and this goes for about, there's 42 million Americans on SNAP or food stamps. This is about 12.6% of the entire United States get SNAP or food stamps, okay? One of the issues that's in this bill now going to the Senate are the requirements that Republicans have demanded for many low-income Americans who have depended on nutrition assistance program. The agreement, which has passed the House and now goes to the Senate, ultimately would institute new requirements for families who get benefits through SNAP and TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. If it passes the Senate and ultimately gets signed by the president, this plan would be the first major deficit-reducing budget agreement in almost a dozen years and would signal Washington is serious about making progress in addressing our mounting national debt, says the president of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. But in a twist, these changes could actually make the programs more expensive for the government in the long run, at least in part because more people would end up qualifying for this aid, veterans and homeless people. So, I mean, let's take this with a grain of salt here, right? I mean, veterans, I think we could give some food to veterans, right? And homeless people. Number one, older Americans on SNAP would face some new work requirements. Adults up to age 49 or participate in training programs for at least 80 hours a month. Those are current rules. There are certain expectations, though, including for people who are pregnant or have mental or physical limitations or live with children. If the deal passes, the work requirements would apply to a new group, adults without dependents between ages 50 and 52, starting in October, and adults as old as 54, beginning next fall. As I mentioned, veterans and the homeless and young adults who recently left foster care will be exempt from SNAP work requirements. This bill does end the student loan payment pause, what the debt ceiling means for student loan borrowers. Now, this was kind of set to end anyways, but what this agreement or this bill does is it makes it so the president will not be able to extend it again. So that's a very big thing because we've seen this extended multiple times by both former President Donald Trump and current President Biden. So they will not be able to extend it again if this bill ultimately passes, which I think it will. So this is going to take 45 million people, and they're going to have to start their student loan payment pause or student loan payments. And the average payment somewhere around $5,000 a year. So this is going to be a kind of financial shock for a lot of people because a lot of people over the last 3 or so years may have bought a house when the rates were really low. Of course, now they're really high. And or whatever, they've kind of gone on with their lives and not really factored in those payments. 3 years is a long time. Maybe they've had a child. I mean, I have a 5-year-old, right? So you can kind of really think. I mean, I don't have any student loans. Okay. We actually paid ours off, so I mean, I could be the perfect type of person. Let's back up here. The student loan forgiveness also is still on the table. Okay, the Supreme Court is actually going to be the ruling party to factor that in. That is still on the table. $10,000 to $20,000 for, again, 40 to 45 million people. That's still there. The Supreme Court is really taking their good old sweet time on handing down the decision of that. Okay, so that's still on the table. The student loan payment pause is going to end, but not like today. The Biden administration had previously planned to end the payment pause at the latest 60 days after June 30th, which would be around August 30th. This bill adds a layer of certainty, though, by codifying that date and preventing Biden from issuing another extension as he has previously done. It's not clear, in the event the Supreme Court rules on Biden's plan for debt forgiveness before June 30th, the payment pause could be lifted sooner, as the original deadline was tied to that decision. The White House Office of Management and Budget did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Also, Friday is National Donut Day, and you can get free donuts at several places. So this might be the best news you hear this week. Here's the places you can get free donuts. This actually goes back all the way back to World War I. The observance was meant to honor the donut lassies who traveled overseas during World War I to provide support for the troops, sometimes by frying up donuts on the front lines. On the front lines. Yeah, unbelievable, right? So if you get a free donut or if you eat a donut this week, eat it in remembrance of the donut lassies from World War I who actually made donuts on even the front lines in World War I. Try to remember them. Even if you can't picture them, you could still kind of have that in your thoughts. Okay, Duck Donuts. I've never heard of them, but if they're a Pennsylvania chain, you can get a free cinnamon sugar donut this Friday. No other purchase necessary. Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' customers who purchase any beverage on June 2nd can redeem a free classic donut of their choice. Obviously, Dunkin' Donuts, really big one. Krispy Kreme. Folks who show up to Krispy Kreme on June 2nd will be treated to a free donut of their choosing. Any donut, the company says, with no other purchase necessary. Anyone who buys a dozen donuts on Friday can also get a second original glazed donut for $2 more. I'm not sure that sounds like a deal, but you can get the first one for completely free. Shipley Do Donuts. Never heard of them. But they're in the South. You can get a free glazed donuts. Tim Hortons. I have seen them on road trips. Apparently National Donut Day isn't just an American thing, but I've seen them in America. And the Toronto-based chain also operates hundreds of U.S. locations. Yep, as I said. They're giving away free donuts in the U.S. Provided you order a hot or iced beverage. So there you go. Let me know in the comments, or let us know, your extended family, in the comments if you end up getting a free donut. Yes, and let us know what kind. So there you go. Let me know. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss out on any new videos that come out here on our YouTube channel. It's completely free to do so. And click the bell icon after you subscribe. Thanks for liking and share this video with anybody that needs to hear this information. Here's some videos you should watch next. Putin giving out nuclear weapons to anybody that will help him. That's right. Or you can click here to watch our newest video next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.